If you want to watch the digital world self-destruct today, you don't need a manifesto. You just need 5 words and a reference. 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 34. Women should remain silent in the churches. In 2026, we've reached a point where silence is seen as the ultimate violence. We've been trained to believe that if you aren't using your platform, you're being erased. So when people see this verse, they don't see a text, they see a weapon. But here's the truth. Most of the people screaming about this verse on both sides have never actually looked at the room where it was written. To understand Paul, you have to stop thinking of a church and start thinking of a chaotic production set. Corinth was the wild west of the ancient world. It was a wealthy, high-speed port city, and the church, it was a total train wreck. Imagine a live broadcast where the hosts are fighting for the camera, the guests are shouting in languages no one understands, and people are walking onto the set mid-scene claiming they have a special message. It was a fever dream of competitive egos. The problem wasn't gender. The problem was that the feed was so cluttered that the message was getting lost. When Paul says let them be silent, he uses a specific Greek word, sigao. In modern terms, this is the mute button on a high-stakes Zoom call. It isn't about deleting someone's identity, it's about saving the conversation. And here is the plot hole that the rage baiters always miss. Paul hits the mute button on the men first. He tells the men speaking in tongues, sigao, or be silent if there's no interpreter. He tells the prophets, mostly men, sigao if someone else starts talking. Paul wasn't building a cage for women. He was issuing a restraining order against chaos. He was saying that the collective understanding of the group is more important than your individual vibe. We see silence as a restriction, but for these women, it was actually a massive promotion. For centuries, women were kept in the dark, barred from formal theology. But in the church, they were finally invited to the front row. They were engaging with deep truth for the first time. The disruption wasn't a rebellion, it was curiosity. They were shouting questions to their husbands. What does that mean? How does that work? It was like people talking during a movie because they've never seen a screen before. So when Paul says, ask your husbands at home, he wasn't telling them to stay in their lane. He was putting a crushing responsibility on the men. He was telling the husbands, you can't be spectators anymore. You have to learn this well enough to teach it. Now, there is a deep irony in our fight over this today. We live in an age of peak speech. We have more tools to be heard than any generation in history. But look at our speech. It's just more noise. We've traded the sanctuary for a 24/7 screaming match in the comment section. Think about the rest of the letter. Just 3 chapters earlier, Paul gives instructions on how women should pray and prophesy in public. You cannot prophesy if you're forced to be silent. Paul isn't contradicting himself. He's making a surgical intervention. It's the difference between a no smoking sign in a hospital and a law saying fire shouldn't exist. One is a boundary to keep the room from blowing up. The other is a fundamental change in reality. We prefer the universal command version because it's easy to pick a side, but the reality is much harder. It suggests that hearing what is true is more important than our right to express ourselves. We've been told that our voice is our power, but the grounded truth is this: you cannot hear anything if you're already preparing your next take. The women in Corinth weren't being erased. They were being told to help stop the noise so that everyone, including themselves, could finally hear something. We are the Corinthians. We are loud, we're distracted, and we're obsessed with our own take. We want the experience, but we don't want the discipline of listening. The noise is louder than ever. Maybe, just maybe, choosing to be quiet is the only real power we have left.